Story 1. You look forward to getting socks at Christmas instead of dreading them. Story 2. I thought I was getting old at 21, at 25, and at 30, but now at 33 I realize I was still young. I'm sure that when I'm 40 and look back, I'll feel the same. So I've stopped thinking I'm old and am focused on being healthy and happy. Story 3. When you have no idea who 90% of the Grammy nominees are. Story 4. When you prefer shopping for household items instead of clothes or personal items for fun. Story 5. You keep seeing young people use a slang word on social media, so you look up what it means, but you still do not understand it after reading. Story 6. When you fall down and people are concerned instead of laughing. Story 7. When you genuinely get excited about a new non-stick, non-Teflon pan that actually works. Story 8. The first sign is that when you wake up in the morning you do not feel refreshed, and this eventually leads to waking up in pain. Story 9. It sounds stupid, but when I saw myself in the mirror after getting out of the shower, I felt devastated. Story 10. When you start caring less about what everyone thinks of you, it is great. Story 11. It hurts when you wake up and when you go to bed. Story 12. You are unable to discern specific ages between 20 and 30. It is the same picture. Story 13. A coworker asked me how long I have been working there, and I said since 2000. He said, "Oh my God, I was not even born yet." Story 14. I'm getting confused by the current point of sale system. Do I insert the chip, swipe the card, or tap it near the machine? Story 15. When you need a pill organizer to keep your daily medication straight. Story 16. When an online form requires you to scroll for an infuriatingly long time to find your year of birth. Story 17. When you drop something, you pause and think, "Fuck, that's a long way down, isn't it?" Story 18. Is it just me, or do others feel this way? I do not want to socialize or attend events. I prefer to be left alone. I dislike birthdays, holidays, get-togethers, and other occasions. I do not want to be around many people, especially strangers. Please leave me to my own devices. Do not call, text, or invite me out. Story 19. I love taking a shower, applying lotion, putting on my nightgown, cozy socks, and slippers. I enjoy being home and doing nothing. I go to bed by 9:30 p.m. Story 20. When you still think September 11th, 2001 is something everyone remembers. Story 21. A while back I weighed 27 stone and had constant back and knee pain. Doctors always said, "Lose weight." That was the catch-all answer for everything. Headache, a hurt finger, lose weight. I lost a lot after surgery and dropped to 15.5 stone. A while later I went to the doctor and said I still had back pain and asked what I could do. "Oh, that's because you're getting old." I was thrilled to have moved out of the lose weight, catch-all category, and a little annoyed that I had simultaneously moved into another one. Laughing out loud. Story 22. There is nothing that makes you want to leave your home after 9:30 in the evening. Story 23. When you get excited at the thought of going to a garden center. Story 24. When your neck has been in pieces for a week because you slept the wrong way. Story 25. When you tuck your pajama top into your pants so it does not roll up as you try to fall asleep. You are welcome for the life pro tip. Story 26. Apparently I now have an overabundance of ear and nose hair that I didn't need during the first 50 years of my life. I don't know what my body is preparing for, and I'm reluctant to find out. Story 27. When you cannot stay awake after 10 in the evening or sleep later than 6 in the morning. When you walk into a room and repeatedly wonder why you are there. When you cannot grasp things as you once did and are constantly dropping items. When your favorite music is playing on the oldies station. Story 28. I buy games I intend to get around to but end up playing the same ones I have already beaten. The same goes for streaming shows. My list keeps growing, yet I never find the time, and when I do I rewatch things I have already seen. Younger me would have been thrilled by the number of media at my fingertips, but now I prefer the nostalgia and play Super Mario World again. Story 29. Cussing in front of your parents and not getting slapped. Story 30. My friends and I recently discovered this. One friend got a new washing machine, and we all had to see it while visiting his place. Story 31. My tolerance for being around people, let alone those with low social awareness or low emotional intelligence, is officially gone. It's only getting worse as people get dumber. I'm beginning to feel like Clint Eastwood in that one movie, but much less racist. Story 32. My knees and hips hurt all the time, and I have to urinate 3 to 4 times per night. Story 33. When you get grumpy because your neighbor's leaves are in your yard. Story 34. My college Spanish course was taught at a satellite campus 10 minutes from my home, while the main campus was nearly an hour away. The community college had a program where high school students could take classes for free and earn an associate degree while in high school. On the first day of the semester, our Spanish teacher was a no-show. The high school students were practically cheering, "Yay, no school." Meanwhile, I was silently fuming because my family had paid good money for this class, and I would be angry if I had to transfer to another section at the main campus much farther away. Story 35. When you give up driving at night because you cannot see anything. Story 36. When you bend down to pick something up and start thinking about what else you can do while you are down there. Story 37. Being able to sit down heavily influences which bars you go to and whether you can have a civilized conversation without shouting into each other's ears. Story 38. A man in his early 20s said I looked familiar, like one of his father's friends. Story 39. You look forward to finding out the 7-day weather forecast. Story 40. If you're a man, a reliable way to check is when your testicles touch the toilet water as you use the bathroom. Story 41. Once I turned 30, things that were not hurting me started hurting. I do not like it. Story 42. You can't remember the last time you weren't at least a little tired. Story 43. It gets harder and harder to enjoy things. There is an upswing in that after retirement. Good luck to millennials for whom retirement is already a challenge. Story 44. Today I got very irritated with a group of teenagers being rude to a fast food worker. Story 45. When you wake up stiff because your pillow shifted 2 centimeters in your sleep. Story 46. Random injuries from sleeping. Woke up today and my lower knee fell off. Story 47. When you get mad at the grocery store for moving things around, I like to remember where things are. Story 48. I didn't understand what kids were saying anymore when I was hanging out with relatives who were 23 years old. I didn't recognize any of their references or slang and felt so out of the loop. Story 49. Your first reaction to hearing the performer at the Super Bowl halftime show is, "Who is that?" Story 50. When you finally start going to the dentist for important procedures beyond checkups and cleanings. Story 51. I am 40, and people I went to school with are starting to become grandparents. Story 52. Back pain. Becoming injured far too easily. Feeling tired more often and lacking energy. Story 53. Getting out of bed in the morning really hurts, and you need to urinate during the night. Story 54. Wake up, get out of bed, and hear snapping, crackling, and popping. I am not talking about Rice Krispies. Story 55. When conversations with friends include segments about doctors and prescriptions. Story 56. Everything hurts, and you have come to accept it. Story 57. You are watching a National Football League game and are focused on the offensive line play. Story 58. Asking a cashier to repeat the amount, then complaining about the price of goods these days. Story 59. I tripped and fell on my way to the station while walking from my office and landed on my knee. My knee bled a little, but I have had worse falls before, so I took the train and cleaned the wound when I got home. The pain lasted about 4 months. Nothing was broken, but it continued to hurt. I think I take longer to recover from injuries now, and I am only in my late 20s. Story 60. I knew I was getting old when I saw one of those steamed hams parodies of The Simpsons on YouTube. This one used Generation Alpha slang, and there were so many terms I had never heard before that it almost seemed like a second language, so I had to search to find what everything meant. This comes from someone who spends a great deal of time on the internet looking at videos, memes, and so on. I still do not really know what giant means. Story 61. You buy a lazy boy recliner, and it becomes your happy place. Story 62. If you fall down and people laugh, you are young. If you fall down and people help you, you are old. Story 63. I've heard that when you turn 50, your bones change. Can anyone clarify this? Story 64. When you select the middle option for age ranges in surveys. Story 65. When you fart and carry on without the slightest expression or care. No jokes or smiles, just business as usual. Story 66. I have to say come again to everything I hear. My hearing seems to be getting worse. Story 67. You hear popping sounds coming from your body. You also forget why you walked into a room, laughing out loud. Story 68. Sometimes you wake up with pain for no reason. You hope it will go away. Story 69. When you think Bad Bunny is the Easter Bunny's nemesis and not a halftime singer. Story 70. When you see the same question asked on the AskReddit subreddit for the 500th time. Story 71. It takes a while to find your birth year in the drop-down list. Story 72. You realize you are now the age of people you once thought were old. Story 73. Hair grows in places where it did not grow and stops growing where it previously did. Story 74. I remember many years ago Billy Connolly said that you know you are getting old when you start making involuntary noises every time you sit down or stand up. I have been there for a while. Story 75. I work at the university I graduated from. Recently, while walking between buildings for a meeting, I was among students and it hit me. It was the same path I had walked as a student many times, but the way the students looked, dressed, and behaved socially showed they were not my generation. It was the first time I truly felt old. For me, it was the moment I could no longer fully relate to college-age people. Story 76. Everything hurts. Sometimes I think about getting up, and my back hurts. Story 77. Receiving clothing as a gift and feeling happy. Becoming enraged when the grocery store layout changes. Enjoying a great day at home doing nothing. Story 78. I sometimes forget how old I am and often give the wrong age without realizing it. Story 79. You reach the top of the stairs and wonder why you are there. Story 80. When you hear yourself grunt as you get up from the sofa. Story 81. You are your usual reckless self, but now bones start to break. Story 82. My colleague never watched the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire because the movie came out the year she was born. It hit me harder than I thought it would. Story 83. When you are filling out an online form and need to scroll for a long time to reach your year of birth. Story 84. I am hearing new phrases and slang, and I am annoyed by them. Story 85. My childhood shows are now retro. I'm not even 30 yet. Story 86. Not knowing certain terms or phrases. Also being in bed at 8 or 9. Story 87. That fruit fly I've been trying to catch is actually a floater in my eye. Story 88. You think about adults you knew when you were a child but lost touch with, and you surmise that many of them are probably deceased. Story 89. When you're excited that they merged garbage and recycling into a single day. Story 90. You watch The Price is Right and prefer the living room set to the car. Story 91. I downloaded Reddit today and immediately got an ad for online dating for older men. I'm 36. As the kids say, I guess I'm cooked. Story 92. You've never heard of the guy doing the Super Bowl halftime show? Story 93. I am tired and ready for bed 4 hours after I wake up, whether I have to go to work or not. Story 94. When you think you're finished urinating, shake and put your penis back in your pants. As you walk away, it may dribble into your underwear, and your shorts may smell of urine by the end of the day. Story 95. Grunts and groans when bending over, sitting down, or standing up. Story 96. Porn stars from your teens are now in the mature women category. Story 97. On my 30th birthday, God released a new patch that turned on fall damage. I fell down some stairs and that was sore for weeks. Story 98. Music you listened to as a kid or teenager is now on classic rock and throwback stations. Story 99. When your doctor wants to schedule a follow-up visit, you have to check your calendar for conflicting appointments. Yes, I have appointments with my cardiologist on Monday, my pulmonologist on Tuesday, and my urologist on Wednesday. Do you have anything available on Thursday? Story 100. When you have to upgrade your 7-day pill organizer because your prescriptions no longer fit. Story 101. When you turn your neck the wrong way on the pillow and feel like you need to apply for disability the next day. When you stand up and your knees sound like a crumpled water bottle. When you pick up the laundry basket and feel your back give out. When you wake up to urinate in the middle of the night and sound like an older person. When you get excited about a new appliance for your house or apartment. When you take so many medications that you have to ask yourself whether you took them all today. When you hear teenagers and no longer understand their slang. When you do not recognize most celebrities in their early roles. When you prioritize insoles in every pair of footwear. When you need ibuprofen at least 3 times a week. Story 102. If you have a smallpox vaccination scar, you are old. Story 103. When you need to enter your date of birth in a form and you are endlessly scrolling to find the year. Story 104. The very thought of being around teenagers for more than a minute either frightens you, disgusts you, or pisses you off. Story 105. You rejoice when get-togethers are canceled. I now have the joy of missing out. The fear of missing out no longer applies to me. I am definitely getting old. Story 106. Spending your Saturday evening with wine and stand-up comedy. Story 107. I saw a woman who I assumed was around my age yesterday at the doctor's office. The receptionist asked for her date of birth, and I heard 2001. I wonder how old I look to her. Story 108. I value benefits and stability more than pursuing my passions. Story 109. You need glasses to see up close and to see far away, but you still squint. Story 110. You wake up sore for no reason. Your back, neck, knees, and hips feel iffy. Your shoulders give out. You are tired, not sleepy. You cough more. Your elbows hurt and you do not know why. You cannot hear anything. You want to be home more. This is incremental. These symptoms ebb and flow. They are not constant and come in waves. Story 111. The other day, I was trying to pop my neck. I had my palm on my jaw and gave a gentle push. I popped my fingers, wrist, and shoulder. Story 112. When you no longer want to celebrate your birthday or tell people your age when they ask. Story 113. All the new music sounds awful. You complain that the neighborhood is not as safe as it used to be. You yell at kids for walking on your lawn. Story 114. You drive around, look at houses, and discuss siding, insulation, and winter heating costs. Story 115. The fact that I see this question and think, oh God, don't make me think about that. Story 116. I look up YouTube videos and reviews for cleaning supplies. Story 117. Honestly, it was when I found myself getting excited about new appliances or receiving spray sets and socks as gifts. Anything I did not have to buy for myself made me over the moon, and I even found myself excited about a new vacuum or washing machine. Story 118. When someone starts a Reddit post with parents born in the 90s, you have to check the date. Story 119. You tuck your shirt in without thinking about it, and 3 hours later ask, when did that happen? Story 120. When you hear snap, crackle, and pop each time you stand up but no one is eating cereal. Story 121. See, that's the thing. I'm not getting old. These little assholes are just calling me uncle. Story 122. My body sends me a written notice that I am in the process of recovering. It seems to take much longer in my late 40s. Story 123. Not being able to eat fast food and candy without blinking. Story 124. You finally have human rights. Your doctor listens to you. Story 125. When you have to turn down the car radio to see the road better while driving. Story 126. A good time sounds like getting a full 8 hours of sleep. Story 127. Bending down on my knees might require help getting up. Everyone at work calls me grandpa. Story 128. When you have to scroll back a long way to enter your birth year on a form. Story 129. Increased sensitivity to certain foods and becoming bloated more easily are also signs. Story 130. I had to look up who Bad Bunny was after he was announced as the halftime performer for the Super Bowl. None of my coworkers knew him either. Story 131. Music. In my 40s, I caught myself saying the other day that music isn't the same. It instantly took me back to my parents saying they don't make music like they used to, and I remembered how I used to roll my eyes at them. Yeah, damn it. Story 132. Most new music sounds a little like something you've already heard. Story 133. It is 100% my knees. I did not feel it when I turned 30. 2 years later, I am feeling it. Story 134. I am 69, but some years back, before I thought about getting old, I sneezed really hard and injured my back. I figured that if you can sneeze and injure your back, you are only a hop, skip, and a jump from breaking a hip climbing out of the tub. I have only taken showers for years. Story 135. When you break a spatula, it physically hurts to throw it out. Story 136. When you start thinking, who's going to pay my bills if I'm sick? I don't want to lose my job because of an illness, so I'll go to work anyway. Instead of saying, no, I'm sick, I'm not going out for the next week or two. Laughing out loud. Story 137. A few days ago, I injured my upper back after drinking some water. Story 138. When you start complaining about everything and say, back in my younger days. Story 139. You call anyone who is more than 10 years younger than you bloody kids. Story 140. You know you're getting older when you have your first colonoscopy, when your lower back starts to ache for no apparent external reason, and when you qualify for senior citizen discounts. Story 141. You don't need a sign to know you're getting older. It happens gradually, not at a single breakpoint. You won't suddenly start experiencing back pain or develop a chronic illness at an exact age. As you age, you slowly show more signs of aging and need to make a conscious effort to stay healthy. Story 142. You get the senior discount at the pharmacy without saying a word. Story 143. Quando inizi a lamentarti delle nuove generazioni per le stesse cose per cui i tuoi si lamentavano di te. Story 144. I am 29 years old. For my birthday earlier this year, my fiancé got me a fancy self-emptying Shark robotic vacuum cleaner. It is equipped with artificial intelligence-assisted light detection and ranging sensors and is controlled by an application. I was absolutely stoked, and as I was setting it all up, it hit me. Story 145. You bundle up, sip a cup of tea, and turn on the television to watch the nightly soap opera. Story 146. It happens when all of your favorite movies and music are referred to as classics. This hit me when I expressed shock to a coworker that she had not seen Fight Club. Her response was that the movie was about 25 years old. Story 147. I talked to a group of freshmen a while ago. None of them knew about Herbie the Volkswagen Beetle. Story 148. A song that was released after you were born is playing on the oldies station. Story 149. You close an app and immediately open it again, like checking the fridge for a hit of dopamine. Story 150. I am working with educated professionals who were born in years that begin with the digit 2. Story 151. I go to places the moment they open. I apologize to the employees when I arrive 5 minutes after opening. I get annoyed when a place opens after 9 a.m. Story 152. I am allergic to the word influencer. It makes me sick. Contains the word flu after all. Story 153. When you are using an application and an annoying pop-up appears just before you are about to click something, redirecting you to a web page, you feel disgruntled and think technology has failed you. Or when you get a phone call and you go to swipe to answer it, but the phone's proximity sensor turns off the screen just as you are about to swipe, you have to remove your hand and try again until you eventually miss the call. When you call the person back, you have to explain that your phone would not let you answer. Story 154. You did not recognize any of the subs on classic rock radio stations because you were too old for them the first time around. Story 155. When you are older than half the people on the planet, this happens sometime in your mid to late 30s. Story 156. When I am watching sports and the son of someone I watched when I was a kid is playing now. Story 157. Not only are the things you grew up with now retro, but the things that came out after you grew up are also considered retro. Story 158. The noises I make when transitioning to a different position. Story 159. When you get why contestants on The Price is Right got so excited about winning appliances and furniture. Story 160. You do not understand at least 50% of what young people are talking about. Story 161. Okay. My husband and I were hungry at an odd time of day and went to an Italian restaurant. When we arrived, everyone was over 70. I thought this was not fun, but we were already there. I took my reading glasses out of my purse and ordered half a plate of spaghetti. My people, thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.